Following Yoshitoki Oima's work with A Silent Voice, I was really excited to jump right into To Your Eternity, which was a follow-up manga that they started working on. Unfortunately, over time, as I read To Your Eternity, I started falling in love with the series. It got to a certain arc that just kind of started losing my interest. So when I seen that Brainspace was going to be doing an anime adaptation of this series, I got really excited to see if this series would actually reinvigorate my love for the writing and get me back into the manga in the end. But this is my review of To Your Eternity, or Fumetsu no Anata, a series that ran for 20 episodes that ran from the spring to the summer 2021 anime season. So let's jump right into it. To Your Eternity opens up following some sort of narrator. And this narrator is basically speaking about how they've created this object or this being that they're going to place upon the earth in order for it to basically catalog the world itself. This certain being that he places down starts out as an orb, but as it's impressioned by things, it slowly learns how to imitate certain things. So when it first touches a rock, it turns into a rock, and then when a wolf comes by and collapses on it, it turns into a wolf, and then so on and so forth. And through the eyes of this being, he travels around the world and meets different people. And through these experiences with people, it slowly learns different things about humans themselves. Emotion, drives, feelings, love, hatred, all these different aspects that human beings experience on a daily basis. And it's in these individual experiences that we get different story arcs that it plays out. With each segment of people that he ends up meeting, you get these short little stories kind of surrounding the lives of those people themselves as he stays with them for a short period of time and before it moves on. And each one of these segments of people often kind of bring their own story themselves, whether it be a tribe and some sort of belief that they have, or a boy who is disfigured and his appearance causing people to outcast him as a monster, or even experience hanging out with the people that are deemed as being the worst of the world itself. And as I said, slowly over time, you're seeing this kind of development in this being as it again learns these different things about the world itself and the humans that are inhabiting it, all while being pursued by a similar being that they call the Knocker, who is constantly seeking out to take out this particular being. So there's actually two different aspects of the story that I think really excel over anything else. One is really in the development of the main character, or this being, which eventually is called Fushi. Fushi is essentially this immortal that is experiencing things for the first time. And what I always found really interesting about this character is that it's very foreign in nature. Like the way that it walks around amongst people that you would see as normal, he is very foreign. He's very alien almost. The way that he moves and everything is very unnatural. And the way that they actually portray that in the manga, as well as in the animation, is incredibly well. I really always like this aspect of that somebody be walking by and he would turn or look or something like that in almost a foreign way. But what actually happens is slowly over time, he starts to become more natural. And the way that progresses was always interesting to me, and I think was absolutely knocked out of the park when it came to the anime itself. And the way that over time he's slowly learning things about mankind and how they act is both the positive and the negatives of his life. That's actually very interesting. How he sees different things such as death, how he sees things such as pain, violence, grudges, all these things that we see very naturally on a daily basis is something that's very new to him, and it's always fascinating to see how he actually reacts to that. But on the other side of this, the second thing that I think is always really well done with a story is these individual stories themselves. Each different person and group of people that he ends up meeting over time end up telling their own individual stories that I always found very interesting. And not only that, but very kind of emotional and stories that you can just connect to and just fall in love with the characters themselves. It's just a type of storytelling that I think that this particular writer just excels at. I mean, again, with something like A Silent Voice, the human element this writer always ends up jumping into is something that I always end up finding myself just sucked right into. And I alluded to it already, but Brainspace really knocked it out of the park with this anime adaptation. I think a lot of respect was done to the actual source material in the adaptation of this. It's very shot for shot, and the amount of animation and the music and everything they poured into a lot of these very critical scenes, I think accelerated far and beyond the original manga itself. A lot of these scenes of heavy emotion and just these pinnacle parts, these turning points for these characters, Brainspace just knocked it out of the park. I felt emotion. I got worked up. There was points where I was going, I couldn't wait for this particular scene to come up in the show itself. And then suddenly out of nowhere, I'm reminded that this scene's just as powerful, and Brainspace took it to another level. And I just went, wow, I'm falling in love with this manga all over again, just based on how they're telling the story and how much emotion, music, animation is being poured into the series. But that's not to say that it's always good. It was unfortunate that towards the later half of the series, in the final arc, it felt like a lot of that polish and that high production value that they were pouring into the series started to dwindle. A lot of the high-end action stuff just kind of disappeared. So it almost felt as if over time, over this course of these two cores, Brainspace either kind of lost a lot of its schedule or a lot of its budget. Because it seemed like a lot of that crazy animation just disappeared. And a lot of the animation for the action scenes just became, basically sliding stills. So it wasn't always great, but I still have to say, for a majority of the show, I think it looked really incredible. It's just for the later part of the series, a lot of the high action scenes kind of just lost a lot of its flavor. I think the only unfortunate thing is, despite it being adapted really well, there is one huge issue with this particular anime, and it's not the fault of the anime itself, it's really in the source material. As I said earlier, there was a particular arc that I kind of drifted away from the manga because of, and that unfortunately ended up being the last arc of this adaptation. Well, not necessarily, because they did have a final episode that kind of bridges it to the second season, which they've already announced, that just really lost me. And I was really looking forward to the adaptation, hoping that it would kind of, maybe explain it better or do a good job of presenting it to me that I would actually enjoy it. But it didn't actually turn out that way. I was still kind of disappointed with that particular arc. But what's great about that is that because of that final episode kind of showed me where it can go from here, it's still, in the end, has reinvigorated my love for this series, and I'm extremely excited for the second season when it does come. The other issue that I really always kind of had with this series is it has a certain antagonist within it that I've never found much interest in, and it's kind of an unfortunate thing to have an antagonist that you can't understand, mainly because you don't really understand their purpose, what their driving force is, and while it does kind of try to explain it, it was something I never understood. Not that it ruined anything, but at the same time, having so much focus on that character, you kind of hope that there was something behind them. But even still, it doesn't ruin the show. It's just something that's a little bit of a nitpick of me. So with all that said, yes, I absolutely love To Your Eternity. Now, I will say, I still think that quite a chunk of it with that particular later arc is very much so a letdown, and a arc that I just wanted it to be over with. So besides having this one period of time where the series just is lackluster, the rest of it is actually really incredible. I love the characters. I love the experiences that Fushi goes through. I love his buildup of his emotion. I love him discovering things, discovering love, discovering pain, discovering suffering, all these things that he's dealing with, these aspects of that, something that only an immortal would really face, this idea of the mortality of those around you, yet this urge that you have to be with other people, this urge to build memories and build bonds with other people despite the pain that you might bring them. All those discoveries that this very alien and very foreign thing is learning is stuff that I really enjoy watching. And like I said before, having these incredible action pieces, having these incredible music ramp-ups, all this buildup of emotion turns it out to be a really incredible series that I think a lot of people really enjoy. And it has me really excited for the second season to come around, because I'm even more so now interested to see where this story goes, because beyond this is stuff I've never seen before, and it'll be stuff that I'll be discovering for the first time, and I'm really excited to see where Fushi's journey actually takes him. But yeah, that's my thoughts on To Your Eternity. Definitely looking forward to the second season. If you like this review, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the series, or if you're going to check it out. Subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon if you can, and y'all take care.